Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Forum for Global Studies, I welcome you all to this very interesting session on energy security and climate change in an evolving green economy. Now, I am Don McLean Gill, Director of Research of the Forum for Global Studies, and along with me is Mr. Praveen Moria, Executive Director, Forum for the Global Studies as well. Now, today is a very interesting session, a very comprehensive one at that. And on that note, we have our very special guest, Dr. Kirill Sablin, the Associate Professor at the Department of Economics and Public Administration at the Kirill State University of Russia. Now, Dr. Kirill, we are truly humbled for your acceptance of our invitation, and we thank you for joining us today in this very important session.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now, Dr. Kirill, we just have a few questions. However, that these questions seem to address the major points for discussion when we talk about energy security, climate change, for example, green economy. So, I'd like to start with the first question: is how and why should environmental security fit in the national strategic policies of states?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Don. Thank you for the opportunity to take part in this discussion. And I think that deeply in my heart, this is a very interesting and exciting theme to discuss about the possible links and connections between environmental security and energy security of the different countries. So it's a very good question whether the environmental security should be fit in the national strategies of countries, because as I think that let's see this problem according to the political economy approach, because we try to analyze the interaction between different states, for example, between democracies on the one hand, I mean India, United States of America, and for example, we can analyze the behavior of countries with so-called autocratic regimes, for example, my native country, Russia or China. And of course, there is a very sharp interaction between these countries and environmental security as well. I believe that it's some kind of field where there is bargaining, political and economy bargaining between countries. And of course, environmental security is also such field where countries clash their interests. And when we speak about these countries, every time we try to analyze the behavior of the representatives, I mean policymakers, officials, and the representatives of the private economy, I mean private sector of economy, it's resource extraction companies, because it's not a secret that resource extraction companies, for example, from Russia, I mean Rosneft, for example, Gazprom, these companies extract natural resources, for example, natural gas or coal or oil, crude oil. And of course, the interests, they have not only economic aspect, but of course they have political one. And in this kind, we can say that environmental security, it's only one side of the coin. Another side of the coin, there is interest of political and economic interests of the politicians, of the officials, top-level officials and top-level politicians. And of course, these strategies of countries, also there is some kind of contradictions. And of course, you know that if we say about the environmental security from the country, from the point of view of the countries with democracies and the stimulus to innovate and to introduce new technologies, it's one side. But another aspect, if we say about the environmental security of countries, for example, Russia, India, or Indonesia, these countries are abundant with natural mineral resources, and I can say that these countries and their representatives try to formulate the environmental security from another side. You know, for example, how to involve in these new realities and how to incentive to stimulate the innovations, technological innovations in these countries. So the main point that, of course, countries should fit environmental security in the national strategies, but this sphere is a field for struggling of interests between different representatives, between political and economic interests of different countries and of different companies. That's the point.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kirill, for starting off this session by mapping out, of course, the dynamics in understanding the relevance of energy and environmental security, of course, with respect to the different configurations, interests, and properties of states in the international system. Thank you so much for that, sir. And for the second question, which relates and sort of dovetails from your earlier discussion, natural gas is often termed as the bridge fuel between the coal-based to the zero carbon energy systems. Now, will natural gas be able to fill that particular role as a bridge fuel? And if so, what must be done to ensure that this follows through among the states in the system, sir?
So, as far as I know, nowadays there is a very intensive debate about whether the natural gas can be marked as the bridge fuel. So as far as I know, in some countries, for example, United States of America, in United Kingdom, or European Union countries, it's a great problem how to get the source of energy. For example, you know that there is a very close interaction, for example, European Union countries from one side and the Russian Federation from another side. And I know that there is some news about the political and economic interactions between European Union countries and Russia, how Russia can supply the natural gas to European Union countries. And the fresh news about the North, for example, the Nord Stream 2, and United Kingdom tried to ban this project. So, and every time we can analyze these interactions, and we can think about what is the basis of this interaction. So we can say that this basis have economic aspect or economic ground of this interaction between these countries. But I can analyze and I can watch this situation inside my country, and of course for the Russians people, our government say that it is a very great question that European Union and Europeans are dependent from Russian natural gas. And of course, here we can see that, of course, natural gas can be viewed as a bridge fuel for these countries according to the technological or environmental aspects. If we compare natural gas, for example, with coal. So I can say that my native city, I'm from Kemerovo, and I associate professor at Kirill State University, and Kemerovo is the coal capital of the Russian Federation. So my native region is the coal capital, and of course I have my personal experience to be involved in the projects, how we can overcome the dependency, of how our economy, our regional economy, can overcome the dependency from the coal. And you know that there is some projects they marked as clean energy and clean coal, and how to introduce the new technologies that the coal will be the clean fuel, yes. So of course it's very complicated question whether the natural gas can be viewed as a bridge fuel, because from one side we can say that there is renewable energy sources, for example solar, wind, and so on. On the other hand, there is coal, and that's why our scientists and researchers try to investigate or to introduce new technologies that we can use coal also as a clean source of the energy. So, and I see that all these projects, environmental projects, projects with linked with innovations, it also have very strong political aspects. So it's the interests of the separate groups of politicians, of officials, and for example in Russia there is federal government, and there is our regions, regional government authorities. I can say that is, and of course when we speak about the political connections between officials and policymakers on the one hand, and then entrepreneurs from different companies. Of course, it's a question about the use political connections and political resource. And I think that in the nearest time there will be no alternative sources if we compare with the natural gas. But will be bridge fuel? Of course, it will be in the nearest time, especially in the countries like the United States of America and the United Kingdom and European Union countries. But we shouldn't forget that it has very strong political ground of this interaction. Thank you.
Absolutely, Dr. Kirill. And of course, you have highlighted the practical and pragmatic nature of natural gas. And of course, the capacity of it to be a bridge fuel, of course, is, as you've mentioned, it's somewhat of a complex scenario given the distribution and the variety of distribution of capabilities of states. And the ability to incorporate it amid geopolitical uncertainties is also something that we have to take into consideration. Now, on that note, sir, we've had several summits, several meetings in the international level. States have been, and leaders for that matter, have been advocating for a massive shift to renewable energy. Now, if I may ask you practically, sir, would a great shift to renewable energy, create any sort of security or economic vulnerabilities or challenges for states?
Sure, it's a very good question and a very exciting question about the renewable energy. Well, the first point that, as far as I know, it's from my personal experience in Russia. You know that Russia is country is very rich in natural mineral resources, and I was involved in some projects in the team how we can use these natural mineral resources to stimulate the economic development of our region, of my native region. So, frankly speaking, my colleagues believe that the green economy, the renewable energy, is some kind of myth. I mean, it's not true because there is no strong technologies to use the renewable energy sources. So that's why there is no alternative for natural gas, and there is no alternative for coal. So nevertheless, also we can see that there is a clash of political interests of different groups, and we have our joint contribution with Dr. Sandeep Tripathi about that the traditional energy projects as an instrument of political influence, a case of Russia. So in this contribution, we show that Russian government, Russian authorities, federal authorities use resource extraction companies, the largest companies in the Russian economy. And you may know that these companies, not from high-tech sector, I mean sector of high technologies, but these companies are from the resource extraction sector, I mean oil, crude oil, coal, as well as natural gas. But you can see that these companies are used some kind of geopolitical instrument to influence or to impact on the neighbors of the Russia, especially in the European Union and the post-Soviet space. So it's also the question about the interaction of interests. And you know that there's a specific feature of the Russia, and here we can see there's some kind of path dependence of the Russian economy and the Russian society, that there is a strong incentive to extract rents, political rents, natural rents, and so on. And in this kind of, we can see that Russian government use these political connections also to extract some kind of rents. It's very strong tradition in Russia to use natural resources, and there is two main points of the natural resources using. The first point that this is the source for the public budget incomes, and on the other hand, the second point that natural resources is the instrument of political influence inside Russia, inside country, to influence on the Russian population. But also it's very important that natural resources is the instrument of political influence and political impact on the neighboring countries. And you know that Russia is also competes with United States of America, with developed countries, And here we can see that this aspect with renewable energy has the problem of internal affairs in the country, because in Russia there is many projects that to stimulate the innovations, and there are many projects to stimulate the renewable energy projects. And as we can see, as we know, that there is a great amount of public money to invest in these projects, but there is a great problem how this project can be introduced in Russian economy, in our strong traditions to use traditional energy sources. So, and the external affairs, if we try to use this theme about renewable energy, of course, it's a new field of bargaining between countries, because as I know that European Union countries try to use renewable energy sources, green economy, smart economy, and inclusive development. So, and I believe that, of course, there's a strong desire to secure the national security of the European Union countries, but of course, it's also have political aspect of this project. I mean, renewable energy sources and green economy, to oppose the projects of traditional energy, for example, from Russia. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kirill, and of course for providing first-hand information from Russian perspective, of course, for this very particular question and how it sort of can be incorporated for other states as well. And you have, of course, effectively highlighted the points that need to be mentioned as far as the practicality, the vulnerabilities, and the challenges involved for a shift to renewable energy, not only in Russia, but also for other states that seek to bank on this particular resource for their sustainability in the long term. Now, when we often talk about energy, the usual questions and narratives that come into mind is that of environment, of course, and climate change. This has been a rallying point, of course, for a lot of discussions, a lot of academic publications, and a lot of meetings among high-level leaders and government officials. Now, this leads to the last question, sir. Perhaps a way forward that you could probably suggest or evaluate. Now, what are the largest barriers for states to collectively take action, effective action on that note, with regards to climate change?
So, yes, what is the largest barriers for collective action of the countries that to overcome the problems in the environment, in the climate change? So, well, let's also use here the political economy approach, and we see that the environmental security and the problems, and to conduct a policy to protect the environment and maybe to protect the climate change. It's a public good. It's a public good, but there is a great question how many countries can coordinate their actions to produce this kind of global public good, because as I said before, that there's different countries with different political regimes and different political structures of the economies, and here I can divide I can point out at least two groups of countries. The first one is the democratic regimes with innovation economies, democracies, the United States of America, European Union countries. And of course, they have their only interest in the environmental security and the climate change. So I know that there is, before the Paris Agreement on the climate in the year 2015, I know that in the year 1997 there was a Kyoto Protocol that to make the market that countries can sell and can buy the quotes that to pollute air pollution, water pollution, and so on. But as far as I know, that the states they did not sign this Kyoto Protocol because they have their own interest in the economic development. So the largest barrier for the collective action that different countries, they have very different interests. And of course, as I said before, when we speak about the countries, we also speak about the representatives of the countries, the persons, the policy makers, public policy officials, and the representatives of resource extraction companies, because their representatives, the top managers and entrepreneurs and the owners of these companies from Russia, from China, or from India as well, they also have their own interests. And of course, it's very difficult, and I guess it's unfortunately maybe it's impossible to make the common ground for these countries. And this is the largest barrier for collective action, that to protect our environment, to protect water and air from pollution. So this is the problem of how to organize and how to coordinate the collective interaction between these countries. They're very sharp, different interests. So, and as I said before, for example, in Russia, of course, Russia is very, as I said before, abundant with natural and mineral resources, and there is no any stimulus for our representatives. I mean, from public sector of economy as well as from private sector of economy. There is no stimulus there is no incentive for them to change and to shift to renewable energy sources, because you may use the natural gas, you may use the natural mineral resources, and you may extract or scrape a very great amount of the rents. So this is the main point. And for these representatives from the federal authorities, I mean in Russia, from the representatives of the resource extraction companies, they want to extract the rents, to export this natural gas, oil, and, for example, coal to the European Union countries, or to the East, I mean to the China, Japan, and so on. So that is why this is the largest and very important barrier. How so that countries, these countries, they don't have opportunity to coordinate their collective action and to overcome, and I mean to solve the problem of air pollution, water pollution, and to make the solid ground for the environmental security. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kirill. And that was indeed very interesting how you were able to, of course, intertwine factors of the domestic and the structural in terms of the national interest, and of course the global geopolitical system, the shifts in the geopolitical landscape. And as far as green economy and economic perspectives are concerned as well, you have highlighted these very important points rightfully well, sir. And on that, we wish to thank you, of course, for joining us here today and for discussing such a very important topic candidly and very concisely but comprehensively. We thank you, Dr. Kirill, for the time that you've spent for this discussion. And on that note, I wish to give the floor over to Mr. Praveen Maurya, the Executive Director of FGS, to deliver the closing remarks. Mr. Maurya? Sir, you're on mute. You're on mute, sir.
In behalf of the Forum for Global Studies, I wish to sincerely thank Dr. Sablin for taking part in this very interesting discussion on the intersection of energy and environmental security. It was indeed a very significant discussion, and we hope for more engagement in the future. We once again sincerely thank you, Dr. Sablin, and we hope to collaborate again soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
Thank you so much, sir.